Okay, hello everyone. So this video is for people who want to pick up something that we kind of behind the schedule for the Thursday lecture, and because all these things might be important for you to finish your assignment 1. So here we go. So for this video I just give you a different example to do the extensions or the ForEach thing. And we're still gonna talk about all these things on next Tuesday, but it's gonna be a different example. Okay. Now let's take a look at this one. Okay, I created for this demo. It's another view, and it's called inner view demo. Okay, whatever you call. So we have a property for this view. It's named as color, and by default you can see it's a blue. Okay, and we have a body to display our view, and this case we use a V stack. So you have seen the V stack or the H stack, which can lay out things horizontally or vertically, but in this case we're going to use the V stack. So V stack actually is used to put things on top of each other. Okay, so in this case the blue thing, the color thing, well in this case is blue, is lay out like at the bottom of the view, and on top of that I have a text, and you can see all the preview here. Okay, so I have the blue at the bottom and the text on the top of the color. Okay, that's how we use the stack. Now we also have another thing named as foreground color, so I adjust the color for the text here. Okay, and for the foreground color we have a color kind of defined by ourselves, because we have seen in the previous demo, like we do something like, maybe for example we do something colored or red. Okay, so they're defined in the library named color, which provided by Apple. Okay, in this case we're not gonna use this one. Okay, we're gonna remove that. Actually, give me a second, revert back, so we can use one color that's like customized color. Okay, like right now you have a totally it's working view, right? But I want to do some optimize on our code. So what if I want to do something similar with this color just as the standard library? Maybe I can say colored maybe sky blue, something like that, because well this color is actually sky blue. Okay, maybe I want to do something like this, which is more, it feels like more native, because just like we call colored or red. Okay, how are we supposed to do that? We can use extension. So the color, this struct is defined in the standard library provided by Apple's Swift UI package. Okay, and we cannot just go to source code and modify the code. We cannot. So that's where the extension shine. Okay, now let me show you how to actually do that. So by declare a extension, we start with the keyword extension. Okay, and followed by extension, we indicate what kind of package or what kind of struct we want to extend. In this case, we want to extend the color. Okay, now inside this code block, inside this body, okay, we're gonna say, let me create another static let color. Maybe we're gonna go with the name as sky blue, just as I mentioned before. Okay, now I can assign this color to the sky blue. So now by doing that, essentially we just add a static variable named as sky blue into the color struct. Okay, by doing that I can just get rid of this line and say color dot sky blue. Here we go. You can resume the preview and you can see we got exactly the same result as before. Okay, that's how we use extension. Okay, now by using extension, usually you don't want to, put all of this thing into your, maybe in this case it's inner view file. You want to separate this file to make it a more like it's clear structure, right? You want to make a clear structure. Okay, so we can organize these things like by convention. We organize these things into different folder. Okay, now let's create a new folder. Let's right click on the folder, the to-do swift folder, and you can find the a option named as new group. Okay, so I'm gonna create a new group. In this case, I'm gonna say extensions. Okay, now inside this folder, I'm gonna create a new file where we're gonna put our extension here, and this time I'm gonna select the Swift file. Okay, and click on the next. Now let's try to name the file. So there's also some convention by naming an extension file. So for example, in this case, we want to extend on the color struct. Okay, now we usually go by color with the plus sign. So it means this extension file and all the all the code inside this file actually extend on the color. Okay, so color plus, and now followed by a name. Maybe in this case I'm gonna just go by with utility. Okay, because so I just provide some utility function or utility properties which are like extend from the color. Okay, that's how we usually name the extension file. Now let's create the file. Now we have the file, right? We can go back to our inner view file and just copy paste this thing to this file. Of course, we're gonna import the Swift UI. That's because the color is defined in Swift UI package. Okay, here we go. Now let's go back and trying to resume our preview again. You can see there's no arrow. Okay, that's how we organize the extension file. Now let's talk about how to use ForEach to display different, or like to display multiple views. Okay, now let's go to this file I just created. Okay, in this file, let's first click on the resume. Okay, it's a vanilla hello world view. Okay, but I do add a list of an array of colors here. So there's just some color I just defined. Okay, I'll just go like red, blue, green, gray, black, all these colors. Okay, so now what if I want to create all different views or different colors by using the inner view we just saw before? Okay, we just saw this one, the inner view. Okay, because the inner view can take a color and display a view like something like this. Okay, so how are we supposed to do that to display multiple color view? Okay, now we can, well, of course we can do like something like inner view by followed by a color, like colors. The first colors, maybe I can also go with so first of all we have to have a V stack because we want to stack things vertically. Okay, now maybe I can go with the first one, maybe second one like this. Okay, but it's kind of stupid, right? Because what if I have hundreds of elements inside this color array? Okay, now I have to do things repeatedly, which is not what we desire. Okay, that's where we actually can use the ForEach to simplify this process. So ForEach is essentially just like a for loop, just which can be used for views. Okay, now let me show you actually how to use ForEach. Again, it starts with ForEach. Okay, now first let's take a look at this thing. Okay, it takes a data. Okay, in this case I'm gonna put the colors here. Okay, now let's create the content. Okay, wait a second, take a look at this thing. Okay, take a look at the the type of the content thing, okay, it's a closure. Okay, it takes something, well, you can ignore all this type right now because they are quite complicated for now, but essentially it takes a closure. Okay, and do recall from the last lecture on Thursday, I mentioned about the trailing closure. So in this case, it is a trailing closure, so it takes a closure and it's the last argument it takes. And do you still recall like what kind of form we can use? Now let's hit on the return button and you can see this form. We already seen this form in the Thursday's lecture. So this is how we modify the trailing closure to a different form. Okay, now this case, this thing, okay, by default it goes with the underscore. The underscore means we don't care what kind of arguments you pass in. Okay, it's here, but I'm not gonna use that, so we go with underscore. Okay, it means ignore the name. We don't want the name for that value. But in this case, actually we want a name, which we're gonna go by color. So the color is the color is each individual element inside this array. So it can be red, then it can be blue, then it can be green. Okay, now we can actually use this color. So inside this body, okay, inside this function body, I'm gonna go with create our inner view demo, which can take a color like this. Okay, now let's try again to run this build our project, and you can see, okay, the compiler is not really happy with us. Okay, so what's going on here? Let's take a look at the error information. So it says referencing initializer blah blah blah, well, requires that color conforms to identifiable. Okay, so the identifiable is a particle, and the color has to conform to the identifiable in order to be used by ForEach. Okay, so why is that? So ForEach actually, as I introduced before, it kind of creates multiple views for you. Okay, and later when we comes to the animation, so Swift UI has to have a unique identifier to identify all the view inside a ForEach. So by doing that, when you do some animation, moving things around, the Swift UI can automatically calculate the animation for you, so you can know this, a specific view is unique and it got moved to another location, and you can do some calculation about how to do animation, right? That's why ForEach needs to requires the data to conform to identifiable. In this case, it requires color to conform to identifiable, which is a particle. Now let me show you how to let the color conforms to identifiable. Okay, so if we have a we define our own struct, like my struct and something like that. If we want to conform to identifiable, I can just do is like something like this. Okay, but it's not gonna happen in our case because again the color is defined by Apple's standard library, so we cannot just go to the source code and change things. Now, well, again, in this case we're gonna use extension, but before we actually go to edit some extension, we're gonna follow by the convention and create a new file. Okay, the extension file. So I'm gonna say this time again, I'm gonna extend. Let me actually see, we actually already have that file, so it's color utility, right? So we want to extend something else. Okay, so for each color I want to have give me a second, actually I'm gonna remove this thing. I'm gonna say I want to let the color to conform to identifiable. Okay, now let's try to compile this thing. Okay, you can see another error message, right? So it says color does not conform to particle identifiable. So why is that? So do you still recall from the maybe first or second lecture when we say some struct conforms to a view? It has some requirements. Okay, that is exactly the same case for the color, okay, sorry, for the identifiable, okay. So the identifiable has some requirements. In this case, to let something conforms to identifiable, it has to provide a property named ID, okay. And for this ID, as long as it's a unique identifier, universal unique identifier, yeah, it works. It can be integer or it can be anything that is unique, okay. But in this case, we're gonna use something called UUID, as you may see in the last lecture. And this is a way to provide a unique identifier, okay. And for this special case, I'm gonna just provide a by using a computed variable and return a UUID, okay. So every time, okay, and there's a special case here. We have to put a public before the declaration. That's because of some access control inside the access control for the for all the libraries come from the standard library. There's some hard limit. But when you do your own, when you write your own struct and want to your own struct conform to identifiable, you don't have to put the public before, okay. We're gonna go, we will get to the access control, like what is public, what is private, what is internal, which is a special thing in Swift, okay. We will get to that, but for now you have to know when you conform to identifiable on a built-in library, you have to go to the by public, okay. And this is how we do that. Of course, you can do something just simpler, like id, and the equals UUID is totally valid, okay. But anyway, we're gonna go by this way, okay, by using computed variable, just to get you familiar with this thing, okay. Now let's go back to our scroll view demo. Let's compile this thing again. You can see, voila, it's compiled. It compiled, right? Now let's resume this thing and give it a second. Oh, wait a second. Let me check. Here we go. You can see all the different colors here, alright? Now, there's one more thing. So, what if I want to specify the frame? Maybe I can go with, because right now, you can see all the thing are even layout, because you use you generate all the views inside the VStack. So VStack kind of help you to organize these views, okay. But maybe I want to, specify. I want the height of each inner view to be maybe 200, okay. And you can see it kind of overflow, right? You cannot see the blue one or the other view below, right? You cannot do that right now. In this case, we actually want to make it scrollable, okay. How are we supposed to do that? Again, introduce another thing named as scroll view, okay. So we put the VStack inside the scroll view. That's how we achieve that, okay. If you want to test out this functionality, you have to run your simulator inside your preview panel, and now you can scroll, okay. That's how you scroll. Now let's stop this. And there's one thing to mention is you don't even need the VStack here, because you can just get rid of that, because for every scroll view, so you already have a VStack embedded into a scroll view, okay. Or well, sometimes you actually have a HStack, so that's because you can define the direction of your scroll view, okay. I'm not quite sure the name of the parameter, but anyway, you can define the scroll view's direction, okay. That's all for today, and we actually will have another demo, just different content, but the same concept, okay, on next Tuesday.